It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Jonathon McCoy with Market Advisor Group, and today we're talking about what happens when you're forced into an unexpectedly early retirement. That's exactly why we've gathered our team of financial professionals here for this episode today. Our panel includes Taylor Bevan, tax advisor from Market Tax Services, Gerald Eidelman, namesake and founder of the Eidelman Law Firm, and then Trey Bossa with healthcare advisor with Market Medicare Advisors in-house here with Market Advisor Group. Welcome in, everyone. Today we're talking about a story of actually a couple of clients that I've been working with for several years now, Steve and Tammy. And when we first met with Steve and Tammy, their situation was that Steve was looking at an unexpectedly early retirement. He'd been a highly compensated employee with a company that he'd been with for over 40 years, and they had a wide variety of different retirement perks, 401ks, deferred compensation plans, stock options, all of this different variety of income that Steve is expecting to need to live on throughout his retirement years. We've also got a situation where, since they're retiring early, they're going to have to deal with health insurance and how that transitions from the employer plan onto Medicare, and a little bit of an age difference between the two spouses here. So Trey's going to talk about on one of our later segments exactly how that impacts a spouse, or especially a younger spouse that might be currently carried on that employer health insurance. And in our last segment today, we're going to bring in Gerald Eidelman to talk a bit about how estate planning is so ever important, as especially assets transfer from being accounts that were held with the employer to now things that you have to manage, and some things that we should be thinking about estate planning wise in terms of what your family situation is, what documentation should be put into place that maybe didn't exist prior to them thinking about their retirement. So Taylor, I want to talk with you a little bit about tax implications. When we're dealing with folks, our primary job as financial advisors is to help usher folks into their retirement, specifically focusing on the retiree generation that we do here at Market Advisor Group. When you look at a situation like Steve and Tammy's, you've got this wide variety of different income sources. What are some important things to consider? What are maybe some talking points that you wanted to lean into today?
Right. So sometimes it can feel pretty invasive, but it's our job to kind of dig into those difficult conversations to kind of uncover what possibilities there might be. Just because he was receiving stock doesn't necessarily mean that he understood the tax implications of that. And so he, with that stock option, had a period of 5 years that he was going to be taking distributions from those stocks, which would in turn, affect his income, his tax brackets, and other things like that. Yeah,
and one thing that you and I talked about, that we talked about with the tax team, was how to structure those first 4 or 5 years of income to make sure that Steve and Tammy's income needs and their ends were met, but also understanding where and why to pull from different pots of money is an important facet of this conversation. What do you say about that when people have, you've got your 401k, you've got a little bit of pension money, you've got this deferred compensation, you've got the stock options. How important is it to be able to sit down with an institution that can handle both the tax and the investment side? Because I remember back to when we were putting their plan in place, I couldn't do much in terms of giving them investment advice until we had some of these tax conversations.
Right, because, as far as all of those different accounts go, we didn't want to, do something that was going to cause any surprise tax implications on the back end. And we really needed to make sure that we got this plan in place prior to the end of the year so that, we could do the necessary moves to protect that those retirement accounts from, being eaten up by taxes and stuff like that. So I was able to give you a lot of feedback on, how we could structure Steve's income during those years of the payout, and that we met his necessary budget needs for, throughout the year, as far as, bills, food, all the fun stuff too.
You retire for a reason, right? It's to be able to enjoy the money. We've just got to make sure it doesn't slap us in the face at tax time.
And then even further after that, we, zoomed out and did, what would the years after those payouts stopped look like? What accounts would his income be coming from? How would that affect, Social Security, tax on his Social Security benefit, things like that.
Yeah, and longer term, you talk about that 5-year window plus. That's not the same for every retiree. This is kind of a unique ingredient with those stock option payouts. When we're talking about, and we'll lead into a little bit of Trey's conversation in our next segment, but when we talk about income and its implications, especially on maybe a spouse like Tammy, who's not going to be quite on Medicare just yet and have something maybe in the Affordable Care Act range, how do you integrate not just with us as the financial advisors, but where are we having those conversations on how that income, those stock payouts, et cetera, might be impacting their healthcare costs?
Right. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't realize is IRMA, and they look 2 years back at your income. And so just because you might have maybe taken a little bit of extra distribution out of an account to use your own money to do something, go on a vacation with family or whatever, you've now triggered a penalty where you'll have additional premiums for your Medicare.
And not to steal Trey's thunder, but that's not a very fun thing to find out about after the fact, whether it's an unexpected tax bill or an increase to your health insurance premiums. Really, it does take an entire team to address all of these issues. And when it comes to your retirement planning, you don't know what you don't know. I think it's, we rely a lot on the internet and other resources to go and try to do our own research. But sometimes when you're confronted with a specific problem, that can jolt you into action to seek other solutions. And Steve and Tammy's fear of redundancy is not getting questions they needed answered at the time that they needed them answered. They didn't want to wait until it was too late. And most of you watching out there are likely in the same circumstance. If you're getting hit consistently with unexpected costs, health costs are going up, tax bills are higher than expected, reach out and give us a call for a 15-minute introductory phone conversation with Market Advisor Group. Our entire team is here available to help you at any point. To set up that introductory phone call, just reach out at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. When we come back, we're going to be continuing to talk about Steve and Tammy's story with their healthcare issues, what that transition from the employer health insurance plan looks like when you're going on Medicare and other forms of insurance available for early retirees. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement this week. We're talking about Steve and Tammy. In our first segment, we talked about uncovering some of the unexpected tax concerns that we have to deal with an unexpectedly early retirement with Steve, and looking at distribution schedules, when's he going to be receiving income when, and how that's going to impact his tax situation is one important piece of the puzzle. But another thing that we need to address also is if Steve's no longer working, what do they do as a household between Steve and Tammy for health coverage? Right, Trey?
Yeah. Whenever people are approaching retirement, this is often a huge sticking point, right? Because sometimes folks work past 65 to keep workplace insurance until the younger spouse is of age. But in this case, we had one at 64, one at 65, ready to sign up for to get into retirement. Now, when we're looking at Steve and Tammy's case, remind me, Steve was 64. We needed to get him a little something. But Tammy...
We needed some bridge coverage for Steve to get him until he was 65 and Medicare eligible. And then Tammy, being a little bit younger, even had to stretch that other insurance longer. So, maybe walk us through for the viewers sort of what options are available if you're not quite to that Medicare age. What are the typical types of coverage options that we're looking toward?
If you are looking to retire and move off of workplace insurance under 65, you have two options. First is what we call COBRA coverage. It's the continuation of your workplace insurance, except now you're going to assume more of that monthly premium. See, right now at work, I have health insurance, but I'm not footing the entire premium for it. When Steve leaves work, and he wants to continue that coverage, he has to assume more of that premium, or even, I think in a lot of cases, he has to assume the whole premium. He has to pay that month by month until turn 65, Medicare eligible. That's the first option.
So if this is going to be doubling or even tripling his monthly health insurance cost, what else can he look at?
The other option would be the Affordable Care Act, the ACA. That is going to be a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about their financial standing and their taxes, because the ACA does award credits, a little bit of a reduction on those premiums for those plans based off of income and taxes. When we take a look at those with folks, we have to take that into consideration, a little bit of guesstimation on the year, a part of their work income and other retirement income that they might start tapping into.
And I know a lot of the conversations we get into as advisors with our Medicare team and with our health insurance advisors, for you, Trey, in particular, it's we as the advisors are typically most in tune with the financial situation of our clients, right? We're sort of the quarterback, not necessarily leading these conversations, but understanding generally what the game plan is, right? So we've got some of the tax implications lined out, and then downstream based on how much income they expect to need to live on, and also how much income is going to show up on their tax return, we then can filter some of that information through to you, which you need to do your job, quoting these plans, right?
Precisely, because that information helps me give them more accurate, we'll call them quotes for different kinds of plans and costs for prescriptions and all of these different co-payments. If I have an idea of kind of what they're expecting to pay, we'll say for premiums and co-payments, Jonathan and I, we can filter through a lot of this information and find the best fitting plan.
Yeah.
Because like you said, COBRA coverage can be sometimes 2 or even 3 times what they're used to paying for premiums.
I've had several examples we have as a team where folks have come to us once again after they've been hit with these unexpected expenses, right? It's, you go on something like Affordable Care Act coverage, you're expected to make, like you said, an educated guess on what your income is going to look like that following year while you're on that coverage. And if you're working with a health insurance agent that's not very well familiar with what your overall financial picture looks like, we get folks walking in the door that have never met Market Advisor Group before, that maybe have viewed our episodes, that say, hey, I got a $4,000 tax bill last year because my health insurance agent misquoted my health insurance plan. Is it the health insurance agent's fault? Is it the policyholder or the insured person's fault? Because maybe they didn't know how to interpret what that income report should look like when they're quoting it. To me, it's really no one's fault. It's the fact that there's a lot of lack of communication between these different departments in our lives, right? I mean, you step in from a health insurance perspective, but that's one way that we look at tying all of these dots together, right?
Yeah, because that's my proficiency. That's what I specialize in. And if I can come to the table with the team and provide that information, I can give clients a more comprehensive overview of their healthcare and retirement, as well as a little bit of the financial obligations with that healthcare, those policies.
So just keeping it brief, what's maybe a 2 or 3 step process? Important things for our viewers to keep in mind if and when they're transitioning these health insurance plans.
Okay, 3 steps. Step number 1, meet with a health advisor. We got to get to know you and get a timeline established. Number 2, we need to execute that timeline. Make sure that we are taking off certain milestones at certain times to make sure that transition from workplace insurance to health Medicare is seamless. And then step 3, talk with the rest of the team. Medicare is a pretty essential part, major medical and hospital coverage, but talking with the rest of the team is going to give you a better idea of how you're going to pay for all of these policies, what it's going to cost you in the long run, and minimizing a lot of financial tax liability when it comes to some of these upcharges that Taylor brought up.
Okay. So, and Taylor, you had brought up IRMA, specifically with Medicare. Is there a limit then, Trey, in terms of how high Medicare premiums can go or how high Affordable Care Act premiums can go if people have these unexpected changes to their income?
The premiums for Part B and D, we'll just stick with Medicare for right now, those premiums are set year by year. The thresholds of income that you can make change every year that determine how much you pay on Part B and D. It is a constantly changing number.
Every year.
Every year. That's why it's important to meet with an advisor, a healthcare advisor, financial advisor, tax advisor every year to stay on top of all these different changes.
Well, and a big part that we look to reiterate to you folks out there as the viewers of all the content that we put out here at Market Advisor Group, but especially this episode today, is thinking about how much work and how much responsibility is put on your shoulder as the retiree. Managing and mitigating tax costs, managing and mitigating the effect of increasing health insurance premiums throughout retirement, managing and mitigating things like stock market risk. How are your investments positioned? Are you comfortable with that level of risk in your investments? Looking at things like estate planning. If something happens to you or your spouse, and maybe you need some sort of long-term care taken care of, or distribution of your assets to your beneficiaries, it's bewildering, right? And ultimately, when we look at our management as a team here at Market Advisor Group, our focus is on you, your situation, your goals, your circumstances, and especially your primary concerns. What are those issues that could be underlying your overall financial situation that maybe you've not addressed ahead of time? So to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call, to get answers on all of those questions, just reach out to us at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly answer in a future episode. And when we come back, we're going to be continuing with Steve and Tammy's estate planning conversation and what issues are underlying the existing documents they had in place when they came to meet with our team here at Market Advisor Group. See you after the break. Welcome back to this week's episode of Eye on Retirement. And this week we've been discussing the impact that the team at Market Advisor Group has had for Steve and Tammy in helping them prepare for a surprising early retirement. The Market Tax Services team and Taylor Bevan, we discussed in our first segment about how do we help when we have an unclear picture on what the tax situation is going to look like, a wide variety of income sources, Social Security, retirement account distributions, stock payouts that are going to be heading Steve's way. The Market Medicare Advisory team guided them through their health insurance decisions to make sure that we've got a smooth transition off of employer health insurance onto the Medicare system through the Affordable Care Act for the younger spouse in this case. And one final conversation we needed to have was what happens to all of this money, what happens to all of these belongings from Steve and Tammy's life if something happens to them. They had sort of a semblance of an estate plan, Gerald, when they first came to meet with us in terms of the documentation that they thought they needed to have in place. What did you find after going through your first sort of sit-down consultation? And maybe what are some more generalized things that people out there should be keeping in mind in terms of what does an estate plan actually look like and what job does it do? What do these documents even mean?
Sure. In their case, they thought they were covered, but the only thing they had was powers of attorney for finances. And it was done several years ago, about 10, 12 years ago. Okay. And they had said it and forgot it. And they felt that having that in place was sufficient for them or for the kids to act on their behalf should they become incapacitated. And when we talk to people, first of all, we sit down, we provide a free consultation, and we sit down to have a conversation because this is about getting to know the person, getting to know what their needs are. It's amazing how many things come up in just having a conversation that they wouldn't be aware. So a lot of times people think they know what they need or they don't even know what they need until you see what their circumstances are, and then you can point to them as to what's missing in their picture. Mm-hmm. Now, in this case, obviously we have to wait to see their documents, but one of the things that's valuable to know is that we as a law firm have encountered a little bit of a problem with powers of attorney for finances. Financial institutions not respecting powers of attorney for finance that were old, that were done many years ago.
So is there some sort of expiration date on this, or is it left up to the institution?
That's it. That's what needs to be resolved by some court at some point. Okay. The law simply says that you can create a power of attorney. Does not state how long it can be valid for. So we're having a challenge and pushback from these financial institutions. And so what we're recommending to people is if you have an old power of attorney for finances or a durable power of attorney, you need to update it every 3 to 5 years.
Wow, okay.
It didn't used to be that way. The general consensus amongst practitioners was a power of attorney was good for life. You said it and you forgot it. You made changes if circumstances change. But that's no longer a case. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's running into this problem,
right?
But it's becoming an issue. We have had to litigate the issue in one case, and the financial company settled.
Wow.
And that was the case in where the individual had dementia and could not sign another power of attorney that was more recent. So this is something people to be aware.
So that's addressing the potential outdating of documents like financial power of attorney. In Steve and Tammy's case, is a power of attorney the only thing they need? What other aspects were you addressing?
No, because although we haven't gone over the documents, based on their commentary, we believe that all they needed, what they needed is, we need to set a plan. They took into consideration Medicaid coming up, the potential for Medicaid spend down. We needed to prepare a will or a trust to have their assets transferred properly. And we needed to put powers of attorney, a living will, all these other documents that make up estate plan.
Right. And when we talk about two sides of estate planning briefly here, while we have time, it's really, is it the healthcare side and the financial side, or those kind of the two primary sides of the coin that we're looking at managing through these estate planning documents?
Yes, that is correct. I mean, we're looking for both things. We want to make sure that issues of health, like long-term care, are addressed, and obviously we want to make sure that we address your financial circumstances as to what you're going to do with your money and where is it going to go.
Right, and until we get a more in-depth understanding of your specific situation, your family needs, your goals, outcome, how do you want assets to be distributed? Are there people in your life that maybe receive an inheritance from your estate that maybe they need a little bit of help managing that or understanding what their tax ramifications are? Some of this goes beyond just financial planning for your household alone and looking at multi-generational investment management, tax planning, distribution of assets. This can get incredibly convoluted, and we've talked a lot today about tax management upon retirement, healthcare management upon retirement, estate planning questions and concerns that has to drill down into your specific household situation. And that's why we enlist the services of the entire team here at Market Advisor Group. To set up a 15-minute introductory phone call, get your answers to your questions, just reach out, 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. That's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jonathon McCoy, along with our entire panel, reminding you that we are keeping an eye on retirement.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.